It's a beautiful reading. Thank you, Serena. The essence of that reading is we need to have an inner experience of God and let it guide our lives. So often when we come to beginning meditation classes and get on the spiritual path, and even long before that, as we're growing up, we're told, me growing up in America, I was given the 10 commandments. Follow these commandments and your life will be righteous. And, reading things like do not kill, it's, sort of obvious that we're not going to go do that. And then you growing up, perhaps it was the yamas and the niyamas. And of course, we go over those also in our meditation classes. And these guidelines, these rules, have come to us through ancient times to help guide souls on the path to God. But earlier on in our path, we're just sort of young, immature souls, just sort of manifested with gigantic egos. We have to be guided. Don't kill. Don't be with your neighbor's wife. Be kind to others. Don't lie. All these things, and and it helps us as just new budding gigantic egos to not create too much karma. As we evolve along the spiritual path, these outer rules are less necessary. But when you think about Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, for example, yamas and niyamas begin them, but then it's like, learn to sit still. Learn to control your energy. Learn to interiorize your mind. Learn to absorb your mind on a quality of God and then merge into that quality of God. So these are all states of consciousness that is a progression. And all of those states of consciousness, we need to follow along on the path. And what the reading is sort of saying is, once you begin to absorb yourself in experiences of God, you no longer need the form. You no longer need to be told to be kind when you're experiencing union with God as love. When you're in your meditation, at the end of meditation, you have this intuitive understanding of who and what you really are. Then you no longer need to be told to be kind to your neighbor, or to be just, or to be fair to your employees. Automatically you are one with all that is. You're so much bigger than this little ego. And so right behavior comes naturally once we're experiencing that truth within. Most of you know that I'm just back from being away 4+ months in the US. And the reason why I went was my dad was not well, and in fact he ended up leaving his body in early January. And I was thinking I shared with some of you already, maybe 3 weeks ago on the flat screen TV, that when the night that my dad was leaving, the night before he was leaving, I was with him, and he finally had gotten still after being very restless. And somehow when I tuned in, I just sat still and I tuned in, I was able to feel his soul's bliss. The bliss of I think being free of he was 86, of his older body, but also his, he had cancer, his diseased body, and suddenly I could just feel his bliss and his peace, and there was something that night I could just hug myself in joy, because somehow I was still and centered enough, my energy was withdrawn and uplifted, and because it was sort of one-pointed and still, I could receive that blessing of that experience of divine bliss that he was sharing with me. And also that my guru, God, my guru, was just allowing me to feel that. And had I not spent already much time on the path, learning to meditate, learning how to center my energy, learning how to uplift my consciousness, so that's just became sort of a natural state for me. This is an important moment. I know how to do this. And suddenly I was open and receptive to receive a divine experience like that. And it was, it was most blessed because I also felt that I was communing with my dad's soul. But my dad's soul was with God, and I was with God, and I was feeling my dad, and it was the most blessed experience. And so we need to do the work, we need to follow the rules, and the form is there, taking us, ever deeper in surrendering our ego and becoming more one with God. So about that time, also after my dad passed, we were getting ready for the memorial service, and I was in San Jose, California with my extended family, with my old friends that I had grown up with, people that knew my dad. So suddenly I'm around all these people that I grew up with, that I had always known. And it was very interesting because on one hand, and maybe some of you have had these experiences, you go very far, or you go a certain distance on the spiritual path and everything's going really well, and everything had been going really well, and then suddenly I'm just in this atmosphere of my past, and we know the rule, environment is stronger than will. And so here I'm just with all my old friends and these old people from high school and everybody that knew my dad and my extended family and just sort of everybody in my life before Ananda. And I was thinking, I'm fitting in pretty well, this is I love these people still. They still love me. I haven't seen them in so long. And, it was just all very interesting. And I was thinking, well, it's not so bad. You can have this and you can have this and do it all. And, by the end of that phase, because there were like 3 weeks of it before this memorial service, I had seen a lot of these friends quite often, not very often, but once a week or enough, much more than I have in the last 15, 20 years. And I realized that it is so easy to go backwards. It's so easy to fall back. It's why it's called the Battle of Kurukshetra. It's just because it's part of your soul's journey, and that vibration also feels familiar, and just think, oh yes, I know this. This is also a side of me. And for a while, it sort of feels comfortable. But after a while, I realized, where is my consciousness? I've just had this really high peak experience with my dad in the hospital, and I can just feel myself getting more and more worldly. I really cared about what I wore to my dad's memorial service and what shoes I was wearing. I mean, I really got into it. And, and I just realized I'm slipping. And so then there's another vibration that we remember. And that remembrance is of our soul, and of the astral world, and of our Guru Bhais, and of our Guru. And that's the memory, the smriti, that we want to emphasize, and that we want to always move towards and have help us in our path, moving forward. So what are we attuning ourselves to? There's so many vibrations out there, and some of them all feel like us. Yeah, this feels like me. But this also feels like me. This satsang hall, my soul is rejoicing to be close to you all again in person. I never felt far from you at all in my heart, but still to be together, thinking of God and Guru and being here together. This is the vibration that will take us to where we want to go, to that divine experience of God that we are all seeking. So further along those lines, then I started working again at my dad's company, where I worked for 10 years before I joined Ananda. And it was very familiar to me because I had worked at that company, I had done that job, and the reason why we needed to do it is because my dad was running his company up until the time he passed away, and somebody needed to step in and actually we need to sell it. And since nobody else was capable of running it, because my dad, he and I ran it, then I left and it was just him running it, and now he died, and so there was nobody else that knew what to do, so I was needed there. And so that also came very naturally, but that was the work me, that was just kind of like more of a business person thing. And it wasn't like I changed from being myself at all. I was kind to everybody, but then we got involved with this transaction with the buyer, and suddenly they were sort of taking advantage of us, and we were the underdog, and these legal contracts, and it was just so bad. I mean, just so, I would say slightly unfair, that at some point I had to stand up for us, and I had to realize that in order to move forward with this, I might have to actually say, I'm going to run this company, and I'm not going to sell it to you. I'm not going to sell it to you at this price. I'm not going to let you do this and this and this to us. And even though my brother was down in Southern California saying, get rid of it, whatever you have to do, just let it go, I didn't feel like Dharma to me. And so at some point I called Keshava and I said, look, I might have to run this half from India, half from here, maybe month here, month there, but I have to stand up to these people. And soon as I did that, I called the buyer and I just said, look, this is what I've decided to do. This contract is unacceptable to me. And I've talked to my husband, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to be just fine. And we're going to run it, and we're going to make money, and it's going to be good. He totally flipped. And he just, everything just like, he goes, well, what do you need to keep it going? I'm like, take this out of the contract. And they did. So that was nice. It was, but talk about delusion. So then I started thinking, I could run this company half from here, half from there. And, even though he flipped, I started to think, maybe I should still do this, And I was thinking, let's see, we could have this much salary coming in, and, and Keshava and I live very simple lives, so I could give it all to Ananda. And, it might be a really good thing. I could put it towards the work in India, I could do this, I could do that. And so I just happily went down this little trail in my mind. And, and I talked to a couple of people about it. It just goes to show you, again, environment is stronger than willpower. That office suddenly seemed so natural to me. And, a couple of my friends from Ananda in California just said, there was never any question about you being able to make money. You could always make money. But what you're doing with your life is so much more important than making money. You're building master's work in India. And how is it, in fact, that you're going to find God? Is it working at this company again? Or is it expanding your consciousness in service to others and in just spreading master's vibration in this world, in India in particular, but in this world? And of course, it took me 20 seconds to realize that I was for a moment in delusion there, thinking that maybe you could do both. And it just depends where we are on the spectrum of evolution and what is soul's growth for us. In the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, Swami Kriyananda, there's room. You can come in if you want. There's plenty of room. Come on in. There's a pillow. There's probably a chair. There's a story in the essence of the Bhagavad Gita that Swami talks about, and Narada has, been doing deep meditation for a long time, so he wins a boon from Vishnu. So they're walking along the desert, and he said, Vishnu says, you deserve a boon, what would you like? He goes, please help me understand. How is it that people get so caught up in delusion? I just don't see it. How can they be so foolish? How can they be so foolish? So he says, Narada, this desert is hot, I'm thirsty, would you please go to that village and get me a glass of water? Most of you probably know the story. So he goes to the village, he knocks on the door, a beautiful maiden answers the door. The father welcomes him in. He likes the maiden, they get married, they have children, and This is after a little bit of time is going by. They have one child, and then they have another, then they have another. He's very successful in the father-in-law's business. And suddenly, this flash flood comes. In just a moment, this water comes and washes the village away. And Narada's like getting his 3 children, and he's got 2 older boys by the hand. He's got one on his shoulders, and he's just trying to get to higher ground. And then this water comes, and the one starts to fall off his shoulders. He goes to reach for the one baby coming off his shoulders. He drops the 2 on either side. They all go down the river. And the mother, in grief, just jumps into the river. And then Narada, has just despondent now, falls into the river and gets washed away. Sometime later, Narada wakes up. He feels like he's got, dirt and sand around him, and he opens his eyes and he goes, "Oh, I must have washed up from the river." And all of a sudden he looks up, and Vishnu's standing over going, "Narada, Narada, what happened to you? I sent you half an hour ago to go get water in the village. What happened?" And Narada said, "Lord, your Maya is so strong. It's so powerful." And it really is. And as we wander in delusion, we can realize from the moment we left God until we are completely one with Him again, there's no time, because time, in fact, doesn't exist. It will just be like this. But in the meantime, we can ask ourselves, how long do we want to wander in delusion? I mean, I feel that I have a pretty set path in life. I've chosen Ananda and being here in India, and I've chosen this life, and I love this life. Look at me, just in the last few months. I mean, you get out of a particular environment, and suddenly your mind starts to wonder, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. And I think if this happened to me, how easy it is for everyone that has, these families, these businesses, the TV on all day, hardly find quiet time to meditate. And, we just have to say, we really need to take advantage of satsang. We really need to take advantage of all of the, in a way we could say, rules that our gurus have given us, Kriya Yoga. I mean, we have to do our sadhana every day and go deep in it, because if our soul doesn't get that connection, how are we going to be able to resist delusion, this Maya that is knocking at our door every moment about what is important in our life? We from joy I came, we chanted this today, from joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. I mean, that bliss, which is the truth of our souls, which is the experience that we are all looking for and longing for, that is why we're born. And our souls, everyone sitting in this room, our soul knew when we incarnated that this is what I am coming here for, is to taste that bliss. Have we perhaps got slightly off track and thought that maybe we're here for something else? Do we think we're here just so that our family thinks we're smart or nice, or, we're bringing up grandchildren and children? There's so many wonderful things in the world, and there's so many good things we can do with our energy. But is it taking us to our goal? And are we going to find God through that? Because if the answer is no, we will not find God through that. Let me say that this life goes by so fast. Just seeing my dad, it goes by so fast. People my age, even in America and even here, you see people, they start to get sick. I mean, things can happen quickly. This life does not last very long. It seems like it's going to go on forever, but it goes fast. And at some point, we're going to have to say, when am I going to work on this goal? Because this bliss is the reason why I was born. Wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. I mean, we look at our spirituality. We should define our spirituality and our spiritual path as to where am I in reaching that goal of communing with God in bliss right now? Because if our energy, and I just see how easy it is, if our energy is being used to build up the wave of the sea, I mean, the only reality that the wave has is the bliss of the ocean, is the bliss of spirit. That's our only reality. God is all power. We live and move and breathe in His power. But we forget, and we say, I'm just going to make my wave a little bit higher. I'm going to make my wave a little bit more important, and I'm going to put my energy into the wave. But the wave has no reality of its own. It must dissolve back into the sea. So if we can have, in meditation, in our satsang, in our lives, if we can experience one moment of that peace, one moment of that bliss in our lives, let us, in humility, remember on our own we are nothing. The wave cannot stand without God. And in understanding and perceiving the insignificance of our own little self, we can bow down in humility to God, to Guru, for guiding us to that place that we know is our destiny. Oneness with that bliss. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. God bless you. We'll have an arati now.